Today is Sunday, June 26, 2016, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. Back with you after heading out on assignment to Rio de Janeiro, the site of this year's Summer Olympic Games. We'll have much more on what I learned coming up as we draw closer to the Games in August. We've talked a lot about this being the year of the angry voter. We certainly watched that play out with the Brexit vote on Thursday. And now, as we continue to watch the bitter divide between American voters play out on a daily basis, the divide took over Washington in very dramatic fashion this week. Coming out of the worst mass shooting in American history 2 weeks ago in Orlando, we once again heard the arguments over guns in America. But it's a little like the old story about the guys sitting around telling jokes by just calling out a number. They know all the jokes they tell, so they don't actually have to go through the act of telling them. They just call out the number corresponding to each joke. Well, is that where we are on the debate over gun violence? Is anybody saying anything new, and is anybody actually listening? We're going to talk about that this morning. Also, so much for taking it to a higher court. We're going to talk about decisions from the Supreme Court that ended in a 4-4 tie. In fact, a critical 4-4 decision handed the president a defeat on immigration policy by defaulting to a lower court ruling. And it didn't take long for the Flint water crisis to be compiled in book format. The reporters of Bridge Magazine are ready with Poison on Tap, and we're going to talk about that too. It's all this morning on Flashpoint. Well, there are news-making weeks, and then there are weeks like last week, and the news cup runneth over in so many different directions. Let's talk about it this morning with this morning's roundtable. Detroit Free Press editorial page editor Stephen Henderson is here. It was a very busy week for Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. We'll talk more about that in just a second. From the Detroit News, Stephen's counterpart at the News is Nolan Finley, and the Oakland County Executive L. Brooks Patterson back with us. Thank you all very much for being here. Congresswoman, let me start with you. You made a very impassioned plea. You've talked before on this program about some of the issues in your childhood and with the relevance with them, in this case, to gun control. It was an extraordinary week, and yet a lot of this happened while Congress was adjourned. Is the needle moving at all?
Well, I think we did move the needle this week, because I have to say that I started the week with, I was at something with Amy Klobuchar, Senator from Minnesota, who we actually thought something might happen this week. And I said to her on Tuesday night, nothing's going to change. We're all going to pray. We're all going to say we're sorry, and nothing's going to move the needle. I had no idea what was going to happen on the House floor on Wednesday when it started. And I think Speaker Ryan made some really serious mistakes, like cutting off C-SPAN and cutting off television. I think it gave a catalyst for people to watch and pay attention to what happened.
Broadcast on Periscope and Facebook Live. Yeah.
But I think that, you know, 92% of the American people believe that people should have background checks, and 85% believes that people that are on the no-fly list, and I have very serious concerns on the civil rights aspect of it, shouldn't be able to get guns. I think that the American people are going to talk to their elected representatives when they're home during this next 10 days. And, you know, we've seen a number of other things change. We thought there'd be no change, there'd be no change. And we've seen a lot of change in the last few years.
Brooks Patterson, have you heard anything new to you? Has it changed to you? You've been around politics for a long time. You've heard this gun debate a lot. Was this different this week or not?
I don't think so.
Even after 50 people being killed in Orlando.
We had a mass shooting, and that certainly was dramatic and was painful and was ugly, but the debate that followed was pretty much the same stuff we've heard for decades. I was talking to my driver on the way down here, and he said his son lives in Switzerland, and they have a different approach over there. They all have guns by law. The law requires them to have the guns and train with it. And most of those guns they have are rifles, okay? But and the crime rate is incredibly low. So maybe they'll take a look at that.
Everybody
we got 350 million guns out there anyway, don't we?
That's right. It's one for everybody.
More than one for everybody. Nolan, I guess it's interesting to me the way that this argument does run to its talking points, and you continually hear, well, if we outlaw guns, only outlaws have them. Maybe we need to get back to the point where we argue, and I know this is sacrosanct. We never argue about constitutional amendments, but is the Second Amendment a good idea in the first place?
Well, of course it's a good idea, and it served us well and continued to serve us well. You know, what the argument about this week, what people should have been sitting down in Congress over this week, is the fact that 15 years after 9/11, our intelligence agencies still can't track terror, still can't identify threats in advance. This was a terrorist attack, and here we're defaulting to the same old opportunistic arguments over gun control and other issues that weren't central to this incident. This guy was a self-radicalized terrorist. We have no idea how to deal with that, and that's what the folks in Congress ought to be talking about and spending some time
Especially an
doing.
American-born terrorist.
Exactly.
Which creates a... Stephen, your thoughts? I mean, is that where we are? That,
Yeah,
was
well,
it not a gun issue?
That is where we are, and that's unfortunate to me. I think that is a gun issue, and it's a gun issue we need to address at that foundational level. What is the cost of the right to keep and bear arms? And right now, what we're seeing is that this is the cost of it. And it's not just 50 people dead in a nightclub in Orlando. It's hundreds of men, women, and children dead on the streets of places like Detroit every year. I think there is a reasonable way to make sure that people who should have guns can get them, and get them legally, and get them responsibly, and a way to keep those guns from ending up in the hands of criminals, which is what happens to all of the guns that are used illegally in this country. I mean, this idea that there's a separation between legal gun ownership and illegal gun ownership is one of the real fallacies we indulge. No gun gets stolen from the manufacturers. No guns get stolen out of the back of trucks on the way to gun stores. They are sold legally, possessed legally, and then transfer somehow to illegal possession. That's the point at which we need to intervene.
To Congresswoman Dingell's point, Nolan, that you've got a majority of Americans who would like to see some changes in gun law. Is that we've watched what happens with vote by referendum this week on another front.
Exactly, and I don't think that's how we make law. We wouldn't have had a lot of our freedoms maintained throughout our history if it was put up to majority rule. But I'd love to see Paul Ryan say, hey, we're going to have a vote next week, and Mitch McConnell, we're going to have a vote next week on repealing the Second Amendment. No guns. We're going to confiscate. We're not going to sell anymore. See how many of these sitter-downers would put their name to that and then go to the voters. Because that's not where the American people is.
So now what I just said has nothing to do with that, and that's where you go.
Well, I was going to say the same thing.
You're proposing
I'm
half
categorically
measures that won't work. That's what
supporter.
we always do.
I'm categorically a supporter of the Second Amendment, but what I do want to do, and with all due respect to Brooks, that's what they do in Switzerland, but they don't allow people that are mentally ill. They try to keep them, convicted felons aren't allowed to, whatever their criminal crimes called, aren't allowed in Switzerland, and nor are they here. But that is not true. There are convicted felons who are accused of domestic abuse and stalking whose partners are allowed to have a gun. In some states, that is not true.
But through legal possession, they come to possess guns, and that's the problem.
Well, then
legal gun owners.
That, Steve, how do you stop that without a total ban?
Well, there are lots of ways to stop it, and it has to do with how people buy guns in the first place.
To the Swiss example, should we demand that everybody who has a gun be trained on it and prove that they
I think
know how to use
it?
license
That's the policy and an approach we all take a look at and study the Swiss example. But their crime rate for a country of about, I think they're 8 million, and they had less than 100 killed last year. Less than 100. That's a bad weekend in Detroit and Chicago.
Wow.
But he's right about that. We're coming to, Chicago, after one of the mass shootings, Chicago had more deaths in a weekend, 54, 60. That's not okay either. I don't want to take your gun away.
But your measure, the measure you sat down for this week wouldn't touch that. And I just think it's a shame that when this country is attacked by a force that wants to destroy us and destroy our rights, we default to trying to strip rights away from our own citizens. Most of those people, Debbie, as you know, on that terror list, on that no-fly list, are Muslim Americans, and the great majority of them don't belong there, and yet you want to deny them due process.
Oh, I do not want to deny them due process, and I had the courage to say that on the House floor, that
that's what that measure would do.
But I said we've got to go to the table and discuss it, and I've been very clear. Stephen and I had an argument at the beginning of not an argument, but I'm concerned about those civil liberties too.
I got to get to a break, but before I do, what's it been like the discussions at your house, given that you're married to perhaps the most famous Democratic member of the National Rifle Association ever?
I think he probably wished that I hadn't sat down on the House floor, but he also knows what my father did to my family and understands how hard it's been. Yeah, understand. All right, we have more to come. Talk about the situation on the Supreme Court. 4-4 decisions making law. This is Flashpoint on the floor.